The mysterious and unexplained. Conspiracies and cover-ups. From the heart of the mountains to the cosmos above, you're listening to Peak PM.
What's up, Internet, and welcome to episode 9 of Peak PM. Today we're going to be covering the Supreme Court appeal that Alex Jones tried to make that failed. We're going to get into this UFO that was shot down, shot at last year in October. Kind of flew under the radar because the announcement was made the day before Charlie Kirk was shot. So this entire story was buried by the news. So we're going to kind of look at the video footage and talk about it a little bit. Then we're going to go straight into this very interesting story about 3I Atlas, this interstellar comet. I think it's safe to say it's probably not a comet. So we're going to go into the details as to why we think it's not a comet, and then, kind of speculate a little bit as to what we think it is. And then we're going to land the plane today talking about 2024 YR, which is an asteroid that is projected to possibly make impact with the moon.
Yeah, I'm excited about that because that's fresh, brand new news that, like, in the last week they've just figured out that there's a high probability that it might hit the moon, which is going to be really interesting.
High-ish. It's the fact that it went from 0% to 4%. So it's like,
yeah,
is it going to creep up? Will there be a percentage, probability that it's going to strike Earth eventually? I mean, it's definitely something to look out for. So anyway, we're going to start today talking about this Alex Jones appeal that failed.
The Alex Jones thing is crazy. So as someone who's been watching Alex Jones since probably right around 9/11, and I've seen him say some outlandish things. I've seen him say some really strong factual things. He's done a wonderful job, like, entertaining and enlightening. But then when all the stuff with the Supreme Court going after, well, hold on, let's roll back before we talk about the Supreme Court. With all of the lower courts and such going after him with just some things he said on Sandy Hook, which I think he said some crazier things on when he talked about there are going to be concentration camps and they're putting up all of these black boxes where we were going to, everybody, that was proof that everybody was going to be killed. I thought that was more outlandish than what he talked about with the Sandy Hook thing, but the Sandy Hook thing seemed to take legs, and the direction it went and then how the Supreme Court's currently looking at it makes me a little nervous.
It seems very odd. $1.4 billion for a defamation case. I've done some digging on defamation in general, and there is absolutely no other case in history that looks like this one. So, I mean, it's very odd. Like you were saying, Alex Jones has said a lot of really outlandish things throughout the years, and then, like, speculating that a shooting is fake. Like, yeah, you might not like that. I mean, having a defamation case when you haven't called anybody out by name, for one. There is zero, and this came out in court, that there's zero verifiable evidence that Alex ever called for any kind of direct action. He never called these people out by name. He did say that they were crisis actors. But, talking about, what you're saying with Alex saying outlandish things in the past, I seem to remember him calling out David Rockefeller by name and calling out Zbigniew Brzezinski and all these different people by name, and then speculating this, like, swath of conspiracies, around these people, calling them out directly. Wouldn't you think that David Rockefeller, he's dead now, but don't you think he would have had a better case for suing Alex Jones?
Well, think of all the times that Alex Jones went to the Bilderberg meetings and speculated what they were talking about in there. Like, he'd see, oh, there goes so-and-so, and they're going to be talking about, controlling the world agenda. You would think those individual people that he called out to their face about some outlandish thing that they were going to be talking about while they went to the Bilderberg meeting, you'd think that they would have a better suit against him, or they would have totally done that years ago. I also want to add, you were talking about the price amount. I was just thinking about that. That's more than, like, when Pfizer lied about certain drugs.
Oxycontin, yeah.
Yeah, the Oxycontin thing. That's a high... They're charging Alex Jones, or maybe the InfoWar, like his whole network, they're charging them more money awarding more money to the people that were hurt with that than they did when they lied about, Oxycontins, or when they lied about, all the other drugs throughout the course of the years that the different pharmaceuticals had lied about. So that's interesting, right? I think we need to put a pin there and think about what that actual means.
Well, it's not just the pharmaceutical companies, it's the media that was pushing the pharmaceutical companies' message saying that these drugs are not dangerous, they're not addictive. So you could implicate the media with causing all of those deaths from the opioid crisis just as much as Pfizer. That information from Pfizer is not going anywhere unless it's actually being propagated by the media. So, and none of their feet were ever held to the fire for that. So the whole thing is just bizarre. Like, they had that fake auction where they claimed that the Onion was about to buy it, and then it got struck down by another court because nothing about that was legal at all. It's like, it seems like our judicial system is becoming very tyrannical in a way that's beyond the executive and legislative. It almost seems like there's not enough oversight or restraint. Like the founders, when they wrote the Constitution, like, maybe there's not enough checks and balances on the judicial system if they're allowed to, have this amount of crazy power.
Also think about it. A lot of people you'll hear out there going, "Oh, this is Trump's Supreme Court." Well, this is a message of free speech. Okay, again, we talked about it in past episodes. Some free speech is gross. Some free speech we don't like, but it is still free speech. And so I can see civil cases being one thing, where you sue somebody in like a civil case. I still think we need to look at, high, extensive amounts. But I don't even know why the Supreme Court is just like poo-pooed this to the side and like, yeah, we're not even going to look at it. We're just not ruling. It's just out. Like, we don't want it. We're washing our hands of it. We don't want anything to deal with this. Like, as someone who believes in free speech, and as, a media platform we are, this makes me nervous. Like, I don't like that the Supreme Court is not at least looking at this.
Yeah, it's a very crude move for the Supreme Court to just kind of outright dismiss it, especially like the Supreme Court has one job, and that's to interpret the Constitution. And I don't know how the Supreme Court could not see a $1.4 billion defamation case as an excessive fine, which is covered under the Bill of Rights. You're not allowed to be levied excessive fines. And also cruel and unusual punishment. 1.4 billion. I mean, that's well beyond. I heard something about in Alex Jones's entire lifetime, he's only made like 50 or 60 million only. But I mean, compared to 1.4 billion, he's only made about like 50 or 60 million off of InfoWars since it started back in like 1997 or whatever. So it's the 1.4 billion. It's just crazy. The mainstream media doesn't lie. The mainstream media doesn't speculate about shootings, right? Didn't Jimmy Kimmel just get in trouble for, I mean, he didn't really get in trouble. He got put on paid leave for like 5 days. But, like saying that Republicans were responsible for killing Charlie Kirk. And I don't know. It's like when Trump was shot in Butler, how many different mainstream media platforms were saying that the shooting was fake, that he used a squib, there's no wound in his ear, all this stuff. It's the same flavor of conspiracy theory that Alex was pushing. And even recently with Charlie Kirk, they're trying to say that Erica Kirk is crying crocodile tears, that all that's fake, and that Charlie Kirk used a squib, and there's people in the mainstream saying that he's still alive and stuff. Like, I don't understand. It's just crazy to me to get in this much trouble for speculating about a shooting. It's just speculation. Like, I thought that that's what the media was supposed to do. It's part of journalism, asking questions.
Yeah, we keep wondering while people talk about why journalism's dead. Well, I think part of the reason why journalism's dead is because a lot of journalists are afraid.
Self-censoring.
Yeah, well, they're censoring, but they're also afraid that if they say something too outlandish or they say something too speculative, they're going to be attacked. And even though we need people to say outlandish things, we need people to speculate, because we need to know where the crazy lines are, so then we can start narrowing it down, so we're not just we don't this path looks like it's the right path, but there's actually a fact over here that we've forgotten or that we haven't seen, and we need someone to say, hey, have you thought about the wind speed? And they're like, oh, I didn't think about that, you know?
And that's what I meant. I meant self-censorship.
Yep.
Like, people are going out of their way to not say the wrong thing. You know, like this Alex Jones thing, it's putting a chilling effect throughout the entire media, where now everybody's going to start questioning whether they should question, which is the opposite of what journalists should be doing. They should be questioning everything. But now it's like, if I question the wrong thing, will I be sued into oblivion? You know? And yeah, it's a really good point. Like, spreading conspiracy theories. This is what I gather from what Alex did. They're saying that spreading a conspiracy theory, it can cause real world harm, right? I mean, like, you know, like some of the victims' families and stuff, they did get threats, but Alex never called for it, though. That's where the disconnect is for me. With defamation, like, I thought that you had to directly call to action. You know, for example, like Hassan Piker talking about, you know, in the middle of a debate, just rush the stage and cut the guy's intestines out.
Showing your opponent's guts on there, okay? You need to be gutting them.
That's not saying do it to Charlie Kirk or do it to Steven Crowder or Destiny or whoever. You know, he's saying just generically, if someone's trying to debate you, you should kill them. Which to me is, it's kind of cut from the same cloth of like, all of these people are lying. I'm not calling them out individually. Aside from, there's the one guy, and I'll cut in a clip right here. But the guy that, like, he's walking up to the podium and he's laughing and he's joking and he's jovial and he's got a big smile on his face. And then he walks up to the microphone and you can see him visibly like, all right, I got to get sad. I got to work up some tears. And then he's like, my son was killed. Just speculating that something's off there. Like, I just don't understand, I guess. Maybe I'm just stupid. Maybe I just don't understand our legal system. But I don't know. I feel like things like that are reported on in the media all the time. You know, getting a false perception off of something that you're seeing, like the Covington Catholic incident that happened during whatever protest that was, where, you know, the Native American guy was beating the drum in front of that Catholic kid, and he was just standing there. He looked real smug, and like the media was reporting, you know, that these are a bunch of like little fascists, and that I remember seeing all kinds of memes about like throwing these kids in the wood chipper and stuff, and all kinds of crazy violent stuff all over the internet as a result of the reporting. So, and like the Covington kids, like, they did get death threats. All kinds of horrible things were said about them as a result of the reportings. I don't know. I don't think that speculation is bad unless you can prove that it's in complete bad faith, you know?
But I think one of the things, because I watched the court case, which, by the way, the court case was a crazy circus. One of the most interesting things is that Alex Jones' lawyer actually sent something that was supposed to go to Alex Jones, sent it to the opposite lawyer's information, which I think, a judge should have dismissed everything right there because it was a mess up. And there were some other things that the judge probably should have recused himself from. But regardless of all of that, the biggest thing that I noticed that they kept talking about is the deprivation came from because they were saying that Alex Jones was profiting from the pain of the family. And that was where, and that's what the media, when you watch mainstream media, even from Fox News to Newsmax to MSNBC, that's what they were bringing up a lot. Is that the biggest thing is that Alex and Infowars was profiting from the pain of others. That being said, when I keep thinking about that, isn't that what the media does? So if we go back in history to the first 24-hour news coverage that we ever had was when Jessica fell into the well. Okay, that was the first time we had 24-hour breaking news where we were just following a story.
When was that?
That was that in early 90s? Yeah, it was a little girl. If you guys remember this, CNN was the first one to do the 24-hour news cycle on this. So a little girl, and I'm talking little, like they were still counting her in months old. She fell into this well and got stuck, and the family made a big hoopla of it, and they had to do all this stuff, bring in all this special equipment, and carefully pull her out of the well. And the news had that 24/7. And one thing I like to point out is, you might say, well, how is the news profiting? Well, during that 24/7, if you watch a commercial, if a commercial shows up while you're watching a 24/7 thing, or you see a commercial on the screen, they're profiting from that. So the beginning of 24-hour news was profiting off of a tragedy.
Yeah.
And we didn't seem to have a problem with it then. We didn't have a problem when we watched when all of us would watch all the 24-hour news of, when 9/11 happened, when we watched the 24-hour news of Columbine, when we watched the 24-hour news of Oklahoma City, when we watched the 24-hour news of, pick your favorite tragedy. There was commercials happening on that, either on the screen or that kind of stuff, and those news things were profiting off of someone else's tragedy. But for some reason, no one had a problem with it back then, but because Alex Jones said some mean things, or because, he got hyped up, I personally, I think Alex Jones is harmless. Some people are going to listen to him and he might radicalize a really small group of people, but I'll be honest, as someone who's followed Alex Jones since the beginning, would I say that he's radicalized me or any of my friends? No. There was times that I did he rile me up and did he get me excited to research or look into things? Absolutely. Did he get me want to go on the streets and fight and do anything? No, not really, because I don't think he ever called for that.
No. I mean, protesting, sure. But yeah, like direct action, anything illegal, Alex has never pushed anything illegal, including, January 6th, which, he was called into court for that too. But it's like there's footage of him up on a podium yelling at people, this is a setup, get away from the Capitol now, do not go in that building. And he was trying to herd people away from it. And actually, one of the other hosts of InfoWars, Owen Schroyer, he went to prison for 2 months or something like that. But he was doing the same thing. He was telling people not to go into the Capitol, and that it was a setup. So it's all very weird. And that's a really good point about people profiting off of suffering. I mean, all this speculation about Trump getting shot and about Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk having crocodile tears. What are they doing in between segments? They're running ads. So they are profiting off of lying about somebody's suffering. Potentially, there could be, maybe it's I don't think so. I think she's genuinely sad that her husband got shot. But they are profiting off of pushing lies. And so was Jimmy Kimmel when he said that Tyler Robinson was a Republican. He's profiting off of lies. So
now let me throw in an angle. This is a far over the corner angle, but I think it pops in my head and it's stuff I think about, so I think we need to mention it. There is a chance that we're all being fooled here, and that Alex Jones is part of the system. And this is just to scare us to try, go back to your self-censoring. And that all of this, Alex Jones is in on all of this, the Supreme Court is in all this to get us to self-censor. Because if we self-censor ourselves, then less work for the rulers to have to do against us. So it's a little out there, I know, but it could be an angle. It could be an angle that's going on. So
still, I mean, being $1.4 billion in debt, I don't know why Alex would jump on that grenade specifically. I mean, that's a hell of a grenade to jump on, unless there is some kind of deal where it's this is all just for show or something. But
yeah, we're going to give you a big number to scare all the little people, because $1 billion sounds like a crazy amount of money. And so, I mean, time will tell when it comes to this. Will Alex Jones actually have to pay back that money? Will Alex Jones find a way? Or is this also just adding to the, they say $1 billion because it's like the Austin Power thing. It's a
$1 billion.
Yeah, it's a number that to the average person sounds really crazy, and we just can't ever understand it.
Yeah. So then, what is the line then? Because we have this show where we do a lot of speculating and we come up with different theories. And I mean, that's kind of the point, is we take a subject, we dissect it, we tear it apart, we look inside, and then we kind of say what we think is actually going on. Could us speculating about Tyler Robinson and his boyfriend, could that come back on us? Like now it seems like the precedent has been set to where the floodgates could potentially open to where anybody in the media that's questioning any narrative incorrectly,
or correctly,
or even correctly,
yeah,
could get potentially financially buried. So it's very, very bad. And even with 9/11, we're talking about 9/11, people were questioning, the witnesses. Some people were saying some of the victims were fake. Some people were saying the people on Flight 93 are still alive. People were saying that some of the terrorists are still alive. Like, it's the same sort of speculating that was done about Sandy Hook was done about 9/11 by Alex Jones, by David Icke, and a lot of other people too, Bill Cooper. But nothing came of that. Like, this is like, it feels like this is the start of a new era with the Alex Jones case. You better watch what you say, or you're going to get sued into oblivion.
Yes.
Which is scary for anybody involved in making content in general.
The reason this is also scary, just thinking about that, is because we also have a president that talks about fake news.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe this president won't do something, but it's a precedent being set that maybe future presidents will be like, well, if you report what's really happening, then that's fake news. And then people get brainwashed into thinking fake news is something that they're not allowed to listen to. Like, I don't remember, was it CNN back in the day that when there was the WikiLeaks, when the WikiLeaks came out, CNN's like, well, you can't read that, but we can.
Yeah, it was Cuomo that said that, Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, don't worry, we're accredited news outlet, so we're allowed to read these documents, but don't you dare go to WikiLeaks. And then I immediately went to WikiLeaks. It had the Streisand effect. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and actually look into this. You're telling me not to look, and I mean that's a whole nother subject. But,
yeah, but I just think that this is something. If any of you have a voice, like this also means if you're typing something on Facebook, or you're putting anything out there that the public can pay attention to. That's why this is important for all of you to also pay attention to how this is going, and also make sure that that with this Alex Jones stuff, it doesn't, turn into a snowball and taking more and more freedoms from all of us away. Because right now, you might not realize that your little post that you post on Facebook about how, you don't like that, the neighbor mowed his lawn a particular way. You don't know that at a particular point that could lead to a lawsuit in Facebook saying, oh, well, you owe this guy this particular money because that was a defamation because, that guy's lawn is an award-winning lawn.
Yeah. Or, we're talking about like Peak being threatened and all these other shows and media creators and stuff like that. But what about just writing a YouTube comment or something like that? Just like, what if you go to a Sandy Hook video and you say, I agree with what Alex is saying. Like, now it's out there that you are also guilty of wrongthink.
Okay, let's talk about even the Sandy Hook thing. Even if you mention a fact, like, Bryan, don't you find it weird that they tore down the school shortly after this event happened? Even simply saying something like that, which is a fact, it is weird.
They tore it down, yeah.
Yeah, it's a fact, it's weird. That could get you in trouble with how simple this Alex Jones thing's got. And those are things that you guys need to be aware of. It's okay to question why they tore something down. That is perfectly fine. We should be able to be told the story.
Hey everybody, just want to interrupt real quick and say that if you would like to support the show financially, there's a link down in the description to our Buy Me a Coffee. Any amount of money that you could donate, we would greatly appreciate and would go a long way towards growing this show. So without interrupting you any longer, let's get back to it. All right, so next we'll start off by showing you guys the footage here.
A congressman publicly releasing defense footage he claims shows a US military drone firing a Hellfire missile at a high-speed orb off the coast of Yemen.
So basically, this UFO footage, like we said, it came out right before the Charlie Kirk shooting. There was some sort of a disclosure project where the government was releasing documents on UFOs. And this video footage came out claiming that this was a UFO that was shot at by a Hellfire missile. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, this UFO that was apparently flying over Yemen was tracked by a Reaper drone. And that's what we're looking at here with the auto track. And a Hellfire missile was shot at it.
Yeah, so
and it kind of deflected off.
Yeah, so the official story is this was on October 30th of 2024. We're off the coast of Yemen. They, like you said, it was a U.S. Reaper drone, is what they're saying, and the U.S. Reaper drone was tracking this glowing object, and that's what you saw in the video. And then they fired a Hellfire missile, which bounced, deflected, did something odd that those don't normally do. And you have a ex-Pentagon, a UAP expert, as maybe is what they're saying, is said that we've never seen a Hellfire missile do something like this before.
I would agree, because Hellfire missiles are for surface. They are not an anti-air missile. I don't know if someone misspoke and they meant maybe it was a Stinger or a Patriot or something like that. But Hellfires are not designed for shooting at air targets. Yeah, so that in itself is weird that a guy from the Pentagon would say that it was the wrong missile system. I mean, objectively, because they're just you cannot target an aircraft with a Hellfire missile. They're for shooting personnel and tanks and stuff like that.
Let's make sure we get this correct. It was an ex-Pentagon official. The Pentagon has still to this day they've not agreed or disagreed. They've made no comment on this. That's also why this is even crazier, is that the Pentagon could have easily just cleared this up and said, oh yeah, this is what happened. Nothing.
They just said no comment.
Yeah, they just said no comment. One of the things that I think is kind of fun to speculate is, you know, we keep hearing this was in that same time when we saw those weird drones flying over New Jersey, and you know, this is shortly after we had that weather balloon fly over the country and things of that sort. Is maybe this is aliens? You know, maybe this actually is alien. Maybe both are aliens. Maybe it wasn't a Hellfire missile. Maybe it was an aliens attacking aliens, and we just happened to catch it on camera.
Yeah, because when you watch the missile approach, I mean, it turns towards the target, which is normal for a missile to do. And then, but on the other side, how it turns to the right. I don't know if maybe the missile is auto-correcting and maybe it's trying to come in for another pass or something to try to hit it again, or I'm not sure about that. But yeah, I mean, is it alien on alien? Is it, you know, some country's technology? Is it like a Russian aircraft that's being shot at by an American missile? Or, I mean, but you know, the Pentagon's very tight-lipped about it. We're not really going to know anything. But the video itself, though, considering that the Pentagon didn't officially authorize the release and they're not willing to comment on it, the video itself is illegal. Whoever filmed that and leaked it, you know, they're definitely breaking, you know, the laws around, you know, classification and stuff. So it was a pretty bold move to do that. I don't know. To me, this just, it seems like a distraction. I don't know. What do you think?
It could be a distraction. It could be a buildup. I mean, we do have a lot of people. You know, if we go back and we think about like Project Blue Beam, where they talk about how there's going to be, you know, one of the next false flags that they want to do is to do, you know, an alien invasion. This could be setting. There's a chance that all of this could just be the, you know, the signpost starting things into people's brains. You know, I do think it is interesting that they've, you know, rebranded UFOs to UAPs, which is always interesting to me. But this could just be a nugget in there, like a little seed to start that brainwashing into us getting used to hearing more about aliens. And so, like, you know, by 2030 or something, they'll do some alien invasion, and people, conspiracy theorists and people like us, will go back and be like, oh, well, they knew there was already aliens here because of, you know, these particular events that we will be able to refer back on. So they could be setting us up.
Yeah.
Or there actually could be aliens here, and the Project Blue Beam is actually to hide us from when the aliens decide that they're just tired of us humans being, you know, silly little humans, and they want to make a difference.
Yeah. So if anyone out there, if you're not familiar with Project Blue Beam, it's pretty much the ability to create images, very lifelike images up in the sky. And we've seen the Chinese government use it. I can't think of any specific examples, but you can look them up. Like they've had these weird hologram projection type things up in the sky. So Bluebeam is a technology that allows them to project images. And I think very strongly, a lot of you out there are probably not going to remember this unless you were kind of digging around rabbit holes back in the day. But there was this phenomenon that happened, I think it was around 2010 time era, where we were seeing these spirals up in the sky. You remember that?
Oh yeah, the Norway spiral.
Yeah, like these big glowing spirals. They look like little galaxies in the sky, and they were spinning. And, you know, a lot of people were speculating that that was a test run, like the first test run of Project Bluebeam. So I would imagine the technology is a lot more refined now. So basically what Justyn's implying is that the government is laying the groundwork to fake an alien invasion, to make it look like an alien invasion is happening in order to scare everybody into uniting into a one world government type of thing. Because, I mean, to be honest, you know, moving towards becoming a type 1 civilization is a benefit for humanity in general, but I think this is more of the illusion of moving in that direction.
The image I saw, it was right around 2011, 2012, that sold me on the Project Bluebeam is, and if you can find it, if I can find it, I'll send it to you because it's what sold me on it. So what sold me on it is it's a gym. You're looking at this gym and there's a whale, a blue whale jumps out of the gym and jumps into the gym floor and does this splash, and it looks real.
Mm-hmm.
That's what sold me on if they had the technology like 10, 15 years ago, and seeing what they've been able to do since then with everything else. Yeah, that's why I think that there's more than meets the eye.
It could be, but they could use it to simulate an alien invasion. They could also use it to simulate the Book of Revelations.
Yep.
They could also make it look like the angels and Jesus and, you know, all of this divine stuff is happening in the sky for whatever purpose.
They could simulate World War III, where it looks like there's missiles and things being blown up above our heads as well. I mean, there's a lot of things that they could do to simulate, to get people. I mean, we heard what happened when the first time they played War of the Worlds on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
those people panicked and died. And, you know, it's why, you know, even in movies now, they have to have some little thing to remind people that this isn't real. So, you know, human psychology, and as they get us more used to seeing more abnormal things like what they're using with AI and such like that, they could use that to trick us even more. Speaking of the aliens and how crazy that is, Bryan, have you been paying attention to the 3-eye atlas?
Yes.
Wow. Like I first heard about it like shortly after, because they just discovered it in July, and I've been following off and on just a little bit, but because it was getting the closest to Mars, I think it was like October 3rd is when it was going to get the closest to Mars, and they were going to turn some rovers around, or they were going to look at some stuff to try to see if they can get some more information of it. This object is really interesting, especially since it's the third of the interstellar visitors.
Yeah. So interstellar, it's from outside of the solar system. What's really weird about the probes that NASA used to look at it with is that NASA has been pretty tight-lipped about what they even saw. Like, there hasn't even been, like, a proper reporting. You know, to my knowledge, there's no pictures out there. They didn't release anything that they got off of these sensors.
Do you know why? The official reason they haven't released anything?
Let's hear the official story. Go ahead.
The government shut down.
Oh, the government shut down. But yeah, so this is interstellar object. It was captured in July by the Atlas Observatory in Chile. And yeah, there's a lot of things about this object that's very odd. First of all, it's freaking huge. It's up to 5.6 kilometers long, or in diameter, or whatever. And yeah, so that's about 3 miles or so. It's a huge object. It's moving at an abnormally high speed. They're saying 50 58 kilometers per second, which is far faster than your average comet.
The part that I think is really interesting is, so all our planets are set on a particular plane. That's why we can see them from Earth. And this is coming at this object, this comet, let's call it, because that's what they're officially calling it. This comet is coming along our same plane, and so it's going to be passing 3 of our planets. It's going to be planning Jupiter. Well, it already passed Jupiter. It just passed Mars, and then it's going to pass Venus on way closer than we are to the sun. So kind of like, I think the closest is like 0.19 AU, and it's all of it is under 1 AU. So that's the distance between the Earth to the sun. So the most interesting thing about this comet, we'll call it, is the fact that it's getting so close to 3 objects. So it's going close to Jupiter, it's getting close to Mars, and it's getting close to Venus. The probability of an object doing that is 1 in 20,000. Now, the probability also being on the ecliptic plane, so our 5% plane, puts it into 1 in a million for it to happen like that, which is insane.
Seems like a very deliberate trajectory, just for it to pierce straight through the solar system perfectly on the same plane.
And get so close to 3 important planets.
Yeah.
I mean, in reality, it's 3 of our with the exception of Earth, it's 3 of our most important planets, because we talk about how there is a moon on Jupiter that we could possibly terraform. Europa. We talk about possibly being able to terraform Mars, and we've talked about possibly being able to live in the atmosphere if we had floatable objects because of the way the pressure in the atmosphere, living in the atmosphere of Venus. Mm-hmm. So it's our 3 most possible inhabitable planets in our solar system, and this object just happens to be flying close to all of them?
Yeah. Well, not only that, but Jupiter acts as a buffer. It's like a deflector shield that protects Earth, too. So Jupiter plays a huge role in keeping Earth safe from, comets and asteroids and whatever else, interstellar objects. But, I mean, another weird thing is that the water outgassing from the comet, the sort of the vapor that they're detecting coming off of it, they're saying that typically with a comet, it begins doing that. It starts doing that sublimation process once it's about, 2.5 AUs or something like that.
Yeah.
But this started all the way back at 3.5 AUs, which is far further back than comets.
We've never seen it before.
Yeah. Not only that, the fact that this comet is carbon dioxide dominant instead of being water dominant. And not only that, but it's an 8-to-1 ratio of carbon dioxide to water. So the composition itself is odd. It's unlike anything we've ever seen in our solar system before, including interstellar objects. And then, I mean, I think the weirdest thing, and this kind of, to me, it's evidence that this is most likely not a comet. And that's the light scattering, the light emissions coming from that we're detecting, right? So it's reflecting like a mirror, for one, but it's a mirror where the effect is flipping around erratically, and it's kind of like moving, like it's like moving at all these odd angles and stuff. Like, just visually, it doesn't even look like a comet. So, and the fact that it's a uniform gray object that's like smooth and flat and mirror-like, instead of being sort of porous and, like every other comet we've ever seen, this one appears like it's almost like polished.
And, just to make sure that what we're saying has some credibility and we're not just, talking like crazy talk, is Dr. Avis Loeb, who is the head of the Harvard Astro Department. He's actually saying now that there is a higher than 0% chance that this is a non-naturally occurring object. And why that's important is for a scientist of his caliber to say that there's a higher than 0% chance means that there has to be science behind it.
Yeah.
There has to be ways to prove it and disprove it. And that's really interesting because you rarely hear someone of that caliber willing to put their credibility on the line for this.
Yeah, so it's not acting like anything we've ever seen in nature before. And it doesn't resemble anything that's ever been man-made before either. So this is like, it's something completely unknown. It fits the definition of being a UAP or a UFO. But yeah, more about the colors though, like I said, it's gray, but they're saying that it's emitting light. So it's self-illuminating, and it's emitting.
It's a blue-green glow right now that's also starting to change.
Well, so it's blue-green, but it is not that it's changing. It's rapidly changing colors, and it doesn't appear to be based on temperature, which is normally what you would expect. For color changes with interstellar objects out in space. But yeah, it's self-luminous. It's bright at all angles of it. So yeah, this just doesn't fit anything that we've ever seen before.
Well, and something that happened just a few days ago that was really interesting is on the cloud that is around the head of what would be the comet, we detect particular types of gases that are coming off of it, and we noticed that it had a particular percentage of nickel coming off of it, and that's very abnormal. And then after about a day or so, all of a sudden it started making the nickel about the size that we would expect it to be, almost like it noticed that we were observing it, and so it cloaked itself and started making it look more like a normal comet. And there was no reason for, based off its location of where it was in the atmosphere, or where it was heading towards the sun, so there is no reason the nickel would have changed the amount of nickel that would have been outgassing and such like that. Like, science are like, we have no idea why that just happened because there is no reason it should have.
Right. So pretty much everything that we've talked about so far with 3i Atlas is, we were looking at actual peer-reviewed papers, right? So this is not some woo-woo, speculation. This is the scientific community, speculating that this is something out of the ordinary. Now, that being said, there are also some people that are observing this comet, whatever you want to call it. They're observing it independently. And a lot of these independent observers are saying that they're seeing smaller companion objects that are flying along with it. So they're saying there's up to 9 different objects that are flying in a formation with this comet, which, all the stuff you said, that 1 in a million, all the numbers behind that, now take into account that the possibility that there's 10 comets flying in uniform into the solar system with all that other stuff. Now you're way off. It's probably a 1 in trillion chance.
Yeah, they were talking about how, so some of the people that have discovered those 9 other objects, they're saying, even if this was the comet breaking up, those objects wouldn't be like tidal lock. They wouldn't be staying in the same formation as this. That is even more abstract that we're starting to see that, because some of them sort of slowed down and kind of faded away, or they should have burned up, or they should have acted erratic.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're not acting erratic is very, very, it's just adding on to how weird this entire thing is.
Yeah. Because you wouldn't think that an object that's 3 miles in diameter, you wouldn't think that would be enough mass to have the type of gravitational pull to bring these other objects along with it. And not only that, but could it be possibly that these objects, all of them are magnetic, and maybe there's some kind of magnetic field around the main one that's holding these other ones in line or something? But that kind of doesn't make sense, because if you think of like the physics of having 2 magnets of polar opposites, they stick together. like it's not going to hover and kind of be in parallel with it. It's going to bring it in and stick it together. So the odds that it's magnetic is pretty much zero. The odds that it's gravitational, pretty much zero.
Now, I will say, though, there is a chance it could be electromagnetic, because there are ways, like, we do know that with, like, force fields and such like that, we can lock things into being certain distances when we use electric into thing. I mean, that's part of the idea of how the sun and the earth, why we're locked in our particular thing. So there is that chance that there's some type of electromagnetic thing holding that in. But now that really gets to the question of, well, if it's electromagnetic, then that really starts leaning towards the idea that's artificial instead of natural.
Where would it be getting that amount of power? And like, how would because this object they're saying that it's older than Earth. It's older than our solar system. So how would it still be generating that much power after billions of years to be able to hold, these things in an, electromagnetic orbit or whatever, in a formation, basically. So let's just go ahead and say it, hopefully, all the Alex Jones stuff that we said earlier. Actually, let's put out a disclaimer right now. Do not panic. We're going to start speculating.
Yep.
Don't panic. Don't start telling everybody that there's an alien invasion coming and, do anything crazy because of that. Let's just get that disclaimer out there, just in case.
We're just two dudes sitting on a mountain talking about weird ideas, weird, cool things that could be happening in the world.
Yeah. So don't take it too seriously. This is sort of the speculation aspect of it. So I mean, I think with the fact that it's generating its own light, it appears to be changing colors very rapidly. It almost seems like it's like a beacon, or it's signaling, or like it's trying to communicate. And like we had kind of touched on in our show prep, kind of like theorizing what this thing could be. Maybe this is a probe that was sent out by us a long time ago, like Atlantean age. And if you think about it too, that would also explain why this probe specifically wants to pass by Mars and Venus. Because if you dig really deeply into sort of the esoteric side of like the Atlantean, the pre-civilization age, there's a lot of not speculation. These people believe that at one point this solar system was a multi-planet system that humans inhabited. So Earth, Venus, and Mars at all point, according to these people that theorize, or maybe they have evidence of it, maybe that's some of the stuff buried under the Vatican or whatever, but maybe they're passing by these planets because they're checking up on the people that are supposed to still be there.
Yeah. Or
maybe it is legitimately looking for a receiver, something to bounce back, like it's querying us, like in Star Trek 4, Voyage Home. Have you ever seen that?
Yep.
Where the whales are extinct in the current year, and this probe comes to Earth, and it implies that whales were put here by aliens to communicate with these probes, and to like they were the ones giving the status update as to what's going on Earth. Well, this probe shows up, sees that whales are extinct, and then like takes revenge on Earth. So like, what if it's a similar thing where this thing is coming here to try to communicate with something that doesn't exist anymore, and then maybe it'll get pissed off, just like in the movie, Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea is it's something that we sent up there, and it's flashing and it's blinking and it's telling us, oh, okay, it's time to capture us before, we've got all this great knowledge of everything that we just found in deep space. We're bringing it back, and it was they purposely went past all the planets that they thought there was going to be life, so that okay, just in case one of them, something bad happened on one of them, one of the 3 planets that we're going to go past will be able to capture the device and collect the data. They set themselves up backup plans.
I mean, maybe it was even launched from Mars or Venus.
Oh yeah.
And that's part of the reason why it's specifically heading towards those planets. It's trying to make contact with whatever people used to be there.
This alien concept of that this could be an alien ship, I do want to mention that the one that came through a couple years ago, the Oumuamua, There was a lot of people because that looked really different. That was the first interstellar object that we discovered. And there was a lot of people that said that looked like it had a light sail. It looked like it had ways to be able to absorb energy from the sun and maybe even from Jupiter. But it wasn't coming at the same like 5-degree angle. It was coming from a larger different angle. But we had never seen an object look like that, and we'd never seen a object act like that. And that's interesting because it was another abnormality. But this one, Atlas, is even acting even stranger than Oumuamua did.
Big time. I mean, Oumuamua, the biggest thing, I think there was that acceleration that it did as it was leaving the solar system, which is just like, wait, what? That doesn't match what we know about physics. That's pretty weird. But, I mean, 3i Atlas has so many things about it that's weird.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things to think about the fact that it's called 3i Atlas, like the third eye.
Oh.
Let's just play a game here for a second. So we're getting into some crazy woo. So be forewarned, this is crazy woo speculation. But let's say that this is an alien. Okay. Let's say this is, and they know that this is going to arrive sometime in December, because I think that's when it gets absolutely closest to the sun. Is in December. What interesting thing has happened in the last month that we should be paying attention to? Well, one, our government shut down. Well, why would the government shutdown have anything to do with, an alien invasion? Well, one is because when the government shut down, there's a lot of stuff they can do that they don't have to tell us anymore. Because there's a lot of stuff that they do behind the scenes, because they can say, we don't have to do the C-SPAN stuff. We don't have to do that. It also means that, if NASA has particular cameras or satellites or something, they can argue, the reason we can't get that out to the general public right now is because we don't have the funds, we don't have the people working to be able to transfer that out. So that's always really interesting.
Well, you were saying about the camera, because of the government shutdown, they gotta shut the camera down, right?
They have to shut the camera down. Another, just to make sure we talk about the cameras, also NASA no longer gives us live feeds from anything that they discover. That also includes, like, Webb and Hubble and even the International Space Station. If you actually read into it, it's actually not live, it's on a delay, because NASA feels that they need to review all of it before they release it, because they don't want to stop. They say because they don't want to start a panic of people speculating. But something else I think is really interesting about this object that's coming through is after it goes past Earth, it's supposed to go back out past Jupiter, and we have the Juno satellite out there that it's going to get actually pretty close to that. But exactly 1 week before this object is supposed to pass it, they're going to turn off the camera on that. And then we did have a Representative Luna, Representative Luna that was actually trying to petition to Congress about keeping that camera up. Well, guess what they can't do now is government shutdown. We can't turn that camera on. We can't get the funding, and there's a really small window of being able, because, we have to send the signal there. We have to make sure we turn it. We have to make sure it gets turned to a particular thing to be able to view the object very appropriately. But it's absolutely doable. But right now, it's not doable because we have to get that approved by Congress, and they're not doing anything. But something else to really think about, and Bryan talked about it in his last show, and I was trying to think about this connecting to this. So in the same time period, we also did have the Secretary of War meet with all the generals. And of course, what we watch live stream isn't everything that they talked about. They're not going to tell us everything. A smart government would not tell its people everything, because, there are spies that are going to be watching that live stream, and spies and such. What if they know something more's coming, and the reason they're shutting down the government is because they need to get more control over things? The reason they met with all of the generals and all that is not because they want to get rid of this woke stuff, but because, there's a good chance we're getting invaded. And we need our generals to change the way they're thinking and start okay, what can we do? What technology do we have? Are we friends with anybody else on this planet that we can share this information with, that we can have a joint thing? Something else to think about is we just extended this really big deal with Qatar, with that military base in Idaho, which is, something else to really think about. It showing that we're kind of, joining forces with some other very high-tech type countries. So what if everything that we think is this government shutdown, and we think that this is this left-right crazy paradigm, what if the rulers are just like, you know what, it's go time, we're going to we're either going to put in blue beam because they know people like me and Bryan, conspiracy theorists, are going to look into these things, and we're going to spread this information, and they want us to, or we're actually having a real alien invasion, and they're just like, we can't tell the American people. We can't tell the American people. How can we, with a good conscience, not tell the American people? Well, if the government shut down, then we can say, hey, we wanted to, but we can't because of the rules. So, again, crazy town. I know it's crazy. I know it sounds silly, but I will tell you that if I was a ruler or something like this, and this is how, and I knew that something that was completely outside of my control was going to happen, that's kind of how I would play the game.
I mean, what about the possibility that the government has known about this a lot longer, and they're choosing to announce it now? Maybe they detected it, or they knew it was coming, or somehow they knew that 3i Atlas was out there, and that is the reason why we got serious about starting the Space Force. Because Space Force came out of nowhere.
It did.
It really did. I mean, all of a sudden Trump is like, we need to be prepared for threats from space. And that kind of took everybody, everyone was pretty much confused over that. Like, a Space Force? Like, I guess, China and Russia and these other countries, maybe they're developing weapons, and we need to be able to, counter those and stuff in space. Or maybe they know that there's another species that's on the way to check up on us or invade us, or who knows.
And this war that we're quote unquote talking about between the countries, these tariffs that we're quote unquote talking about, this is all a distraction to allow each of the countries, they're actually working together, but allow all the countries that we're supposedly enemies with to start getting things prepared, to start getting things under the cloak of chaos, getting all the order prepared, so that and it may not be, Atlas. Atlas just could be the probe that's going to go. Maybe the government knows by, they keep talking about 2030. Maybe they know that by 2030, the real one's coming, and they're giving themselves just enough time to get all that in. We do see all these rich people and all these governments building these bunkers. We keep thinking they're for climate change, or we keep thinking they're for an asteroid, or we keep thinking they're for this particular thing, but maybe they're for an invasion.
Yeah. I mean, another possibility with 3i Atlas is, maybe that's when they pull the trigger on Blue Beam.
Yeah.
When Earth is like, everyone on Earth is like, oh, here it comes. Maybe they have like a camera on it, and everyone's watching it live or something like that. And then all of a sudden, they activate Blue Beam, and now there's stuff flying around in the sky, and we're just like, what the hell's going on? And I mean, who knows? It'll be very interesting to see how it unfolds. I would bet my money on nothing. 3i Atlas itself is a distraction. I would put my money on, it basically just coming and going, and people just basically forgetting about it. But who knows? This could be game time, either in terms of the government pulling something shady, or an actual outside force coming here for some other reason. Or maybe it's a probe that we launched that is returning and trying to make contact.
Or the government's using this as a test to see if they obscure enough information. Can you get the underground media, the folks like us, can you get the underground media to talk about this, to hype it up? Because, it's one of those things, when you feel like you're in the know, when you feel like you know something that everybody else doesn't know, you share that, and other people get a camaraderie around that. And so maybe this is a test run to see how riled up they can get all of us. They can see how much they can get us to spread this information, so that when they're ready, they can turn on Project Bluebeam, and they know that they're going to be able to get the mainstream media and the underground media and possibly even the alternative media to all talk about it in different ways, so that it becomes, well, if all three of those media sources are talking about it, it's got to be true.
Yeah. Yeah, like they're laying like a psychological foundation.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to our final story, which is another object that's going to be passing by. This one appears to be a lot more threatening. 2024 YR4. So this is an asteroid that's a lot smaller than 3i Atlas. I think it's only like 30 or 50 meters.
This is about the size of a school bus.
Yeah.
Just to make it easy for people to understand, it's about the size of a school bus.
Yeah, so it's much smaller, but there is a probability NASA has put out that there's a 4% chance that this object could strike the moon, which, you know, like we were saying in the beginning, that could change. It could go up to 10, 15, 20%. Maybe, you know, it becomes probable that it's going to make impact with the Earth or something like that. Here it comes.
Yeah, the reason why this is important is, so this was also the object I think it was in like March or something, that they were worried about hitting Earth. Now it's changed its trajectory a little bit because it's got closer. It's got the pull of Earth. It's got the pull of Moon. It's got the pull of the Sun. But the reason why it hitting the Moon is a big deal. So things hit the Moon all the time. But the reason why this is a big deal, not only will it be visible from Earth, we'll actually be able to see it as long as it's as long as where you live it's dark and it's not happening under a new moon, which you still might even be able to see it if it happened under a new moon.
If it causes an explosion,
yeah. But the reason that this is important is because an object this size, if it hits the moon, will produce at least 1 million pounds of debris that will get jettisoned out and about, and that has, depending on the trajectories of that, has the possibility of coming and hitting some of our larger objects, so some of our satellites that are further out. And the reason why this is a big deal is because one satellite being destroyed and getting sent inward can cause a catastrophic failure of everything around, especially with how many Starlink's, all their satellite array, with Constellation, with Amazon's putting up their satellite array, and there's another country that's putting up a satellite array as well. With all these extra satellite arrays being out there, that causes some additional information that we need to pay attention to, because 1 million pounds isn't actually a whole lot. That means that if it does instruct and objects do fly, that there's going to be a lot of any satellite that we control, they're going to have to be able to maneuver around to try to do their very best so it doesn't get hit. It also would mean that spacewalks or things that are going to happen around the International Space Station are going to have to be extremely limited, because even a small piece of dust hitting the suit of someone doing a spacewalk could instantly kill them. Now, don't get me wrong, I think it would be absolutely awesome. I think that with our modern technology, being able to see a large object strike the moon and make a new meteor, the science behind that would be awesome, because we'd be able to learn a lot more about the moon, and we'd be able to learn more about this. But something else that could be very useful with this, so I don't know if you guys ever watched Deep Impact or you watched Armageddon. This would actually be a good object to practice nudging.
Yeah. Well, they're talking about actually doing that, right?
There's talks about it. Again, with the government shutdown, they can only talk so much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like Elon's talking about it. I mean, an independent contractor could go up there and do it if they want to, but
I mean, they've also talked about, there's also some conversations about this would actually be another good object to capture and put into our atmosphere and mine, and see if it's actually possible for us to capture objects and then bring them in and mine them and use the resources on those. Because some of those things, actually, they found that some of them, we talked about that one Comet has a lot of nickel. Mm-hmm. Some of them have gold. Some of them have also other rare earth elements that, aren't normally common here. And I'll be honest, I would much rather us take rare earth elements off of something that's floating around our planet than destroy, what could be a rare earth element, down in North Carolina or something like that. So that would be something else interesting to think about.
That'd be kind of cool. little ball of like platinum and gold just floating around.
So I also do want to mention, since we are talking about all of this kind of stuff, just to be aware, because I've been noticing there's a lot of confusion going on right now. But starting in October, so starting now, so by October 21st, there's actually 2 other comets that are going to be visible for us on the planet. So you're going to hear people, I've already seen people starting confusing these comets with everything else that's going on. And the 2 comets are, there's Comet Lemon and Comet Swan. And you actually will be able to see them with your naked eye if you look south-southwest right around sunset between now and about November 4th. So on the 21st is when both comets will be visible with binoculars if you're in a really dark area. But I just want people to be aware that there are comets coming through. There's some interesting stuff happening in our night skies. And so don't let some of the TikTok hype scare you, like, oh, the comet that you see there, that's the that's the 3 Atlas comet, and it's going to actually get closer and it's going to bounce off the moon, because that's how this stuff can spread, is 3 different objects that are all, existing out there can all get blended into one and cause a lot of scare tactics and do some really, really silly things. So,
or like 3-Eye Atlas is shooting proton torpedoes at us or something.
yeah. So the 2 comets is Comet Lemon, which you can look up, and Comet Swan, which you can look up. You can, if you have that cool little app on your phone at night, and right after sunset, look to the southwest, and you'll be able to see it on the app, and you'll be able to stand outside maybe with binoculars or with your own eyes and be able to see it. So it is a kind of a cool thing that you might be able to see and just kind of enjoy and get you outside and enjoying the night a little bit, because I don't know about you, Brian, but now that fall's here, the nights have just been so nice and crisp.
I've been outside pretty much every night. So it pretty much that's going to be every night until the wind season hits here at the top of the mountain. So Anyway, so I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you for tuning in. Please leave a like, comment, share. Do what you got to do to spread the word. Also, if you'd like to support the show financially, there's a link down in the description to our Buy Me a Coffee page. Any type of donation would be greatly appreciated. And we will see you next week.
Yep.
Peace out.
Adios.